Welcome to the Pathways to Wholeness podcast. I'm Michael Warmoth, and I thank you for joining us for this next episode of meditative teaching. Please note that these meditations were recorded in a tropical environment with the windows and doors open, so you will hear birds and other sounds in the background. Try not to let them distract you from the words. Okay, let's just settle in, relax, maybe take a few breaths and just listen to the music before the teaching starts. We must be clear about what we mean when we use the term surrender in the spiritual journey and practice. Surrender means to end a conflict, to give up a battle, to stop doing what we're doing that is not getting us where we want to go. In terms of our spiritual journey, surrender means giving up the conflict with our authentic self, giving up the conflict with the truth, with love, with the world and the universe. That conflict is the source and purpose of the ego and the identity. The ego is charged with instituting a program of control and distraction to keep the natural impulses of the authentic self out of our conscious awareness. that takes form in many ways, through contraction of the body, the diminishing of connection with our feelings and emotions, and thoughts and thinking and stories and beliefs. At some point in our lives, there was no ego and no identity. There was only the experience of life, being alive. That experience is always available to us. That is, it is always the true experience of the moment. But we replace that experience with the distractions of the mind. We're always trying to do something, or accomplish something, or fix something. The ego is effort. Surrender is allowing. As we progress in our life and we begin to become more and more used to being in control and living in the world of thought and distraction, the idea of surrender, of giving up all control and effort, becomes more and more frightening. It becomes associated with darkness and nothingness, even death. What we don't realize at the time is that that's completely the opposite of what the experience of surrender is. It is the ego that generates the fear that makes surrender so frightening. The ego is charged with the job of remaining in control. And when we begin to contemplate surrender, the ego gets active. So we must come to understand that we are making choices. We are choosing the ego. We are distracting ourselves with it. We are believing and trusting in it. And we are believing in effort and control and trying. We are believing in duality, possibility that things are good or bad and right or wrong. What we forget and have forgotten is that at the same time we are doing that, there is another truth that remains steadfastly true. That truth is available to us. But for most of us, doesn't come right away just because we heard about it and because we want to know it. Although there are instantaneous experiences of the truth, they can be pretty rare. But we must remember that they are the evidence that the truth is actually the reality of this moment. And so our practice is about affirming and acknowledging that no matter what we think we are seeing and experiencing, it is not the truth. That it is a hallucination of the dissociated mind of the ego and the identity, and that we must acknowledge and affirm there is a more universal, absolute truth in this moment. And that absolute and universal truth is always the only truth. We must begin to recognize how we have been conditioned to fear and oppose and deny the truth. It goes against almost everything in the modern culture. We must understand that the undoing of this conditioning for most of us is not an easy task. If you consider a dog who has been abused or mercilessly treated, it will be a long time before they will trust a human again, if ever. It takes much patience and compassion and understanding, forgiveness and empathy to undo that conditioning. And it is the same with us. We may not have necessarily been conditioned with the threat of violence, although many have been. But we certainly have been conditioned to fit in. And there were times when our survival seemed to depend on it. We are naturally inclined to want to be part of the world. And when we are threatened with exclusion from it, we react and respond. And so our practice is to recognize that we have been taught and conditioned to believe there's something wrong with us, something wrong with the world, that only effort is rewarded, and that we will get nothing if we don't try harder. And to see that that is actually not the truth. To practice surrender and letting go is to realize that we are choosing to distract ourselves. It was a choice made a long time ago. We are choosing to believe the stories of the ego, and that if we can bring that choice into consciousness, then we can change it. But we must be willing to admit that there is some truth to the fact that we are choosing to create our own suffering and struggle, and that it is simply out of our own desire to control that we have lost track of what is actually reality. Surrender in real life means being conscious, paying attention to whether what we are aware of is the truth or a distraction created by the egoic mind. Always being conscious of what we are doing with our mind. If we will acknowledge that there is a truth that is universal and absolute in every moment, that there is an infinite consciousness that is our Creator, that we are one with that infinite consciousness because it is infinite and is all there is. And that there is a divine order and a divine perfection that is the reality of this moment. Everything begins to look different when we acknowledge that. We may find it hard to believe, but the ego will never accept it. It is a question of changing our state of awareness from the dissociated state of the ego to the state of presence, the experience of reality of this moment. It takes practice. It takes dedication. But it can be done. Thank you for listening to this episode of our podcast. If you'd like more information on these meditations and teachings, visit pathwaystosurrender.com. You might be interested in our other podcast, Pathways to Surrender. These are guided meditations designed to support you in letting go of whatever tensions or false ideas you might be holding about how things really are, and reaching a state of peace and surrender. That's Pathways to Surrender. Look for the next episode soon. We're uploading them every couple of days. See you next time.